Hi, my name is Anna Tilbury, and for this presentation, I'm going to be talking about my field experience for W200. W200 is a course that you can take at IU in which you learn how to integrate technology into the classroom. It's for future teachers, so let me get into this presentation. First of all, I wanted to acknowledge that for this field experience, we met in an online format because of COVID. This format was through Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams is similar to Zoom in that it's an online meeting platform where you can meet virtually face-to-face. I met with two fifth graders from a local elementary school because I hope to be an elementary teacher in the future, so this was kind of a good learning experience and practice for what I'm going to be going into. My main goal that I had when conducting this experience was to facilitate the learning of these students I was paired with in an engaging and fun format. When I think of facilitation of learning, I think of providing students with the independence and drive to succeed. This means really allowing the responsibility of learning to be upon them and just providing them with the motivation to take this learning upon themselves so that they can grow as learners. The first way I did this was just by forming a connection with them as an adult role model. Even though I wasn't working with them that long, just providing them with the experience to develop a relationship and communicate with an adult role model is so valuable because it allows them to feel support and it allows them to feel motivated to grow, mainly because they have that support system behind them that encourages them to succeed. Another thing is providing them the opportunities to grow through the frameworks that we discussed in class, which are motivation, opportunity, time management, and quality. I think that this really motivated students to learn because they were getting the opportunity to have a different experience, like learning experience than they normally would in class, because I was providing them with activities that they might not normally do during their independent reading time, and this made the activities fun and engaging, and it really encouraged them to get involved. It also just provided a good quality lesson to them because it's a little bit different than what their teacher might be doing in class, and this just allowed them to learn in a different style than normal, which is really valuable in facilitating learning and allowing students to grow. As far as technology, because it's a technology-based class, it was really important for me to consider ways in which I can implement technology when teaching them. The way that I did this was mainly through online collaboration. One of the students was at home when through this lesson, one of the students was in the classroom, and then obviously I was in my dorm room. So this was a way for all three of us to meet and collaborate together and work towards the same learning goals, even though we were in different places, which is really valuable. I'll discuss more of this later, but I think that I could have done a little bit of a better job integrating technology, but this is one of my goals that we'll discuss towards the end of this presentation. As far as how this contributed to learning, I kind of mentioned this before, but just providing them with the opportunity to learn in a new and engaging method is really valuable. They were able to have kind of like a fun field trip for them in which they were still getting a valuable learning experience, but it was something that was different from their normal routine and allowed them to have fun while also enhancing their reading skills. As far as how I would make changes to my technology integration, I think I could have been a little bit more creative and thought outside of the box. I didn't really integrate technology as well as I wanted to. I didn't really use it other than through the platform. I didn't use a lot of the tools that I could have, which would be like screen sharing or a whiteboard or just integrating a technological game or anything like that, which is something I would hope to do in the future if I was to do this again. Okay, overall for this learning experience, the book that we decided to read, because this was centered around their reading time, was Seussisms by Dr. Seuss. And basically it's a book that takes wisdom from children's books by Dr. Seuss and applies them to adults. The reason I had to read this book was because I had a little bit of a plan of the book I wanted to read to them online, which would be me screen sharing and then flipping through a book so that they can read to me. But my screen sharing did not work, so I had to read them a book that I found in my room. It was really just me having to be flexible and come up with something on the spot, and this was the first thing I found. But overall, I think this is a really good experience because I really worked on focusing on reading comprehension by asking them questions related to the advice given and asking them how they can relate that to their own life and apply it in a real life situation, which I think is really valuable at their age. I made it, catered it towards a 5th grade level reading skill. My strengths when conducting this field experience were, like I mentioned, flexibility. I think my ability to think on the spot when creating this activity is really valuable because a lot of times teachers won't have lesson plans in front of them, so they have to just come up with something on the spot, and they might have to change up their plans immediately just because something doesn't work out. So I thought this was valuable because it worked out well for me, even though it was something that I had to think of within the moment rather than having the time to plan ahead. Relationship building was a key thing. I really made sure to ask them about things that are important to them because the questions that I was asking related to the story were related to things that they enjoy doing and were passionate about. I think it really helped them build that connection with me and want to communicate more about themselves to me and build that trust between us. Another thing, like I mentioned, was just creativity as far as the book I was reading and then the questions I was asking. I think that it really allowed the students to take what they were learning and apply it to a real life situation, which is valuable in allowing them to understand that learning goes beyond the classroom into the real world. And finally, communication skills. I think this is really important in an online format to build that relationship quickly because we weren't able to meet for a long time, but it was really important for me to allow them to have fun by asking fun questions and getting to know them, while also really enhancing their reading skills by asking the deep questions that really challenge them as readers. As far as weaknesses and improvement, my first weakness was technological knowledge. I think I should have known better the features of Zoom and how to screen share, so I should have prepared in advance by looking into how Microsoft Teams works so that I wouldn't have to be as flexible and adaptable on the spot. Another thing was preparation. I didn't really do a ton of lesson planning because I wasn't sure what reading level these students were at. It didn't really provide me with that information on the sheet, so I didn't really have anything specific prepared because I wasn't sure what they would be ready for as readers. And that was a good thing at the moment because the 2 readers that I was working with were at completely different levels. So that did work out well. But I think that if I was a little bit more prepared, I would have been able to make a much more engaging lesson that would have provided both of the readers with opportunities to engage and learn in an optimal format. In order to improve this, I hope to enhance my pedagogical knowledge, which is just being able to understand ways in which I can be creative with my lessons and just how to implement my own teaching methods into an experience like this. I think that's something that I just in general will have to grow on as someone that is learning a lot about teaching within the future. And also clarity and directions. There were a few times when they kept cutting out and stuff like that, and it kind of caught me a little bit off guard because we were having a few technological issues. So I think just clarity and when I was discussing with them and when I was asking questions would have been helpful in allowing our meeting just to flow really well despite a lot of the interruptions. My key takeaways after this experience were the importance of preparation and building relationships, especially in an online setting. There's no telling whether I'm going to have to teach in an online setting in the future. If I do, I think it's really important for me to first build those relationships because a lot of times in an online setting, students don't have the opportunity to talk with their other students. So building that community is really important, and also just building that teacher-student relationship that it motivates them to succeed is really important and something that should be prioritized. Preparation, I learned, is super important. It would have helped my lesson flow so much better. It would have made the questions a lot more applicable to their learning skills, and it would have just allowed them to make the most out of this reading experience. So as a result, my 3 things that I hope to do and the things that I've learned will help me as a future teacher in enhancing my teaching skills are to first take a student-first approach, understand what the students need, and learn how to accommodate those needs. Second, carefully consider their needs, which is what I mentioned before. And then third, challenge myself, which means go outside of the box a little bit when I'm teaching them and think about ways that I can be creative in my teaching methods so that they're really getting the most out of this learning experience. I really enjoyed this field experience. It was a little bit different than what I'm used to, but I thought it was really valuable, and I'm happy that I got the opportunity to do it. Thank you for listening to my presentation.